Happy Friday and welcome to the Freedom from the Press podcast. My name is Jason Robertson and I'm here with my partner in crime,
Todd Peterson. Thanks for joining us, folks. And Jason, we're going to try not to be Joe Biden today and present you a coherent argument and analysis of how the media has just dropped the ball completely covering Joe Biden's disastrous debate. Folks, if you turn in 1 minute to CNN or MSNBC, they're going to say, oh my God, how did anybody not catch this? And then the next minute, you're going to see them say Joe Biden is completely fine. They are all over the place, and we've got it all for you today.
Yeah, and I got to say, for Todd and I, when we saw the debate, Todd, what was your gut level reaction?
Joe Biden is awful, and we've been saying that for 5 years, and until last Thursday, we were doing selective edits, cheap fakes, conspiracy theorists. Joe Biden was completely fine, what they told us, and I saw what I knew all along, because Jason, you and I watch C-SPAN for a living, so that was the Joe Biden that we've grown up with, but a lot of folks had their world rocked. And as we get into this a little bit more, and Jason, as you always say, please share this with your Joe Biden voting family members and friends, because I don't know how they're processing last Thursday and how they ever trust the media again. But, you know, how many times have we seen other hoaxes presented that get debunked and they're right back into listening to KJP, the White House, the media. So I don't know if that'll ever get addressed.
Yeah, I gotta say, it's Todd hit the nail on the head. We watch C-SPAN, you know, we go to the source code for our news, and we covered on the podcast, we covered in our written content at the American Tribune, and we try. I mean, we're conservative, and we're not shy about saying we love President Trump or voting for him, but we try to just like cut through the media narrative and have Fox and CNN both lie to you. But this debate, it was just so funny because when I saw him just coming off, I mean, he's just an old man who's mentally declined, who's going through sundowners, it appears. And we've seen that, and we've been saying that, and people have been calling it, oh, you're crazy, oh, you Trump mega hat, blah, blah, blah. And that's one thing, like, for all the audience, anybody watching, listening to this, you know, share it with your Democrat friends and have a conversation, because these clowns that have just watched CNN and MSNBC and, oh, Joe Biden's great. Oh, it's the sharpest Joe Biden I've ever seen. And then they watch that debate. They had to be sitting there like, oh, my God, everything they told me was a lie. This man is a clown. And that's where the journey we're going to take today. Todd, what do you got there?
I was just going to add, too, these are the same people that were telling you that Donald Trump was old and senile. They always brushed the Biden comments aside and said, no, Donald Trump's the senile one, as if that was their argument for not supporting Donald Trump. And then they have to come to terms with the fact that, wait a second, I was just saying that about Trump. It's really true about Biden, because, side note, Trump did awesome at the debate. He just showed up, was calm. He didn't bully Biden. He let Biden speak. I mean, all those parameters they set, they thought they were helping Biden. Turns out it was a massive win for Trump to just go up there, be muted, not have to worry about interjecting. And they just listened to Biden talk. So now suddenly they're like, well, I thought senility was bad a second ago when it was Orange Man. Now it's my guy that's senile, and I don't know how to compute with this anymore. I'm going to wait for the media to tell me what to think. But Jason, newsflash, the media is going to tell you everything. They cover the spectrum of he is fine to he's got to go, and you never know what you're going to get on any given day on CNN or MSNBC.
Oh my God, in the White House. I mean, folks, since the debate, there could be 1,000 clips we could play. And so we had to pick some of the best ones. But they've gone from, okay, well, Joe can only do events from 10 to 6. And then Joe was out of it because he was on cold medicine. And then they said, no, he wasn't on any medicine. And then they said he was tired from world travel, which was 12 days earlier. KJP gave up. Todd clipped it. We wrote an article about it. She said, oh, he's tired from world travel.
He had jet lag.
He had jet lag. But he had spent 8 days at Camp David, where the reports coming out of there were that he slept till 10 or 11, and then he took an afternoon nap. They can't keep their story straight. We've said all along Joe Biden won't be the nominee. We've also said we hope Joe Biden is the nominee. But yeah, it's looking bad.
Jason, I got to say, Jim, welcome to the program. If this is your first time tuning in, appreciate you joining us here and love the pushback. But I think we got to set the record straight. So Jim writes, you guys are just what they are talking about. You hate to hear the truth. Jason, I don't know what we've said that's not truthful. Jim, I'm going to say it straight. They lied to you about Joe Biden's health. Joe Biden is in serious mental decline. And what does that mean for our country if he is not running it?
Right.
Let us know in the comments what's wrong about that, Jim. I think that's a pretty balanced analysis. Even though we are admitted Trump supporters, we can also say the truth. And the truth is, I don't even know what point you're trying to make, Jim. Biden's old, and that's concerning because who is really running the show?
Right. And you think Vladimir Putin meeting with Xi Jinping and they see sundowner Joe Biden say, I can't do anything late. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, but Jason, here's the headline that we opened up with. It says Biden at 81. I think this is from the AP. Sharp and focused, but sometimes confused and forgetful. If they're not trying to play both sides of his condition right now, I can't think of a better and more concise headline to do it. Biden's good. He's sharp and focused. Biden's confused and forgetful. So which one is it? Pick a lane, guys.
Oh my gosh. Should we start with our favorite propagandist, Todd?
All right, folks, I'm going to set this up. If you've tuned in last week, you saw Morning Joe side by side. So a little flashback. A couple months ago, Morning Joe said Joe Biden was the best version he's ever seen. He's agile. He's quick on his feet. Post-debate, Joe said, I think it might be time for a change. And you've got to listen to, there's a new segment of Morning Joe. So someone spliced it side by side by side. And you decide for yourself if MSNBC is committed to the truth, Jim. This one's for you.
But I undersold him when I said he was cogent. He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been. This is a battle for the future of American democracy. And now is a good time. In June, thank God. In June, and not October, in June, this is the last chance for Democrats to decide whether this man we've known and loved for a very long time is up to the task. As for the rest of us, and that's Democrats, that's independents, that's Republicans of good faith. Let's be smart. Let's take a deep breath, and let's understand it's only July the 5th. Such an historic decision should not be made in haste.
Who watches this?
Hey, I do got to give a fact check too. Jim weighed in. Sorry, guys. I was talking about the two comments the guys made about Trump. I'm with you guys.
Okay, yeah. Appreciate it, Jim. Apologies
Thanks, Jim.
for jumping in the
We
gun
were
there.
like, whoa, I thought I had seen Jim comment before, and I didn't think he was brain dead. But now I've got to lay this out too, this Joe Scarborough. So the first clip, sharpest Joe Biden ever, which is kind of an oxymoron because Joe Biden's never been sharp. He's never been the guy you'd want to hire to run a franchise McDonald's. He's an idiot. And now he's an old, mentally decrepit idiot. But, you know, a couple months ago, he's the best ever. Now, last week on Friday after the debate, that was that middle clip where he's like, Joe's got to go. We got to get rid of him. Now, for those who don't know, because you don't watch Morning Joe, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, he was out from the show. Turns out he had to have a dental issue or wisdom teeth pulled out.
More
and
like
then
a
magically
re-education.
when he comes back after 3 days off or 4 days off, which by the way, his wife Mika is on the show with him. And by the fourth day, that was that third clip where he's like, okay, guys, we need to calm down. Joe Biden's fine. And millions and millions of people are going to take the advice of this man. And he sees more stuff than we do because he's in the media and he has access to more stuff than we do. So he should be like the middle guy should have been the right personality. It's insane.
I know. Before the show, Jason, I asked you, like, what is happening here? Are they really that clueless or are they just lying to your face so blatantly? And I think the only takeaway is that they're just lying to you. Joe knew all along, this Joe Scarborough, he knew the entire time what was wrong with Biden. And he spun whatever narrative the regime wanted him to. He'll say whatever he needs to, read the scripts. He just shows up on camera. It's not like he's doing any investigation. All right, give me the script, guys, on the teleprompter. I'll read it to you, to the MSNBC audience.
Right.
Guys, anyone that watches this, can you share this with your friends and say, can you make sense of this, please? You watch Morning Joe every day, my Joe Biden voting family member. Can you show them this side by side by side and just say, can you explain how you can tune into this and how you accept this?
Right.
Like, they're just programmed today. Well, okay, let's take our time. It's only July. Forget what he said last week. Forget what he said months ago.
Right. You know, and I got to say, especially the Facebook chats on fire today, there's 100 great comments. And the the one I want to jump on, Ricky, there's rumor Biden resigning Monday. Any truth to that? So here's what I'm going to tell you, Ricky. Right now, I can't say if I was a betting man because I'm a betting man. Joe won't be the nominee. I do not know where or how Joe is going to not be the nominee. I'm not sure the machinations. I think they need to pressure Joe into stepping down. The convention is in late August, like the 19th through 22nd. That would be an opportunity, or if the polling continues how it is, it's going to be, it'll be replaced sometime between hither and yon. I don't think Jill's going to let Joe step down yet. I mean, so Todd, are you expecting an announcement imminent?
I mean, I'll go back. You and I have been saying for a long time now, well over a year, that Joe Biden wouldn't be the nominee. And if you're any Democrat pollster and you're looking at the numbers and you look post-debate how they got even worse for Biden, I mean, they want to win, so they're not going to keep Biden on the ticket. That is a sure loss right now, which is, by the way, Jason, why I want Biden to stay in the race, because it is a slam dunk for Trump. But they've got to do it before the convention. I've seen a lot of things, and it makes the most sense to me that they're going to do a slow wind down. They're slowly going to get more information out there. Even like Morning Joe just said, like, take your time, folks. It's July. They've got a month and a half to just get more information out there about Biden. And then they have to dump him by the convention because that's when the party is going to select their nominee. And right. I keep seeing Hillary's name circulate. And that's not someone you and I have talked about. We always said it'd be Gavin or Big Mike. But God, it seems like Hillary is just laying in the weeds. She's just there enough to get her name out there. And I don't know. Is anyone out there that would vote for Hillary still?
Oh, my God. Well, I got to say, and shout out to Susan Gibbs. Where's Wayne Dupree? Wayne doesn't do the Friday pod. He takes Fridays off. He's got business stuff to do. So this is just Todd and my podcast. Monday through Thursday, though, we're on the Wayne Dupree show. But Wayne Dupree was the first person who came out and said he thinks it's going to be Kamala. And when he first said it, I'm like, oh, man, you can't be serious. But if you look, they're floating Kamala. She's making her own videos. She's doing stuff like that. And it's like, oh, my God, is this really going to be a thing? Are they? I mean,
if you saw the leaked Trump video, he wants it to be Kamala, too, because as dumb and as bad as Biden is, Kamala is 10 times worse.
Right. Oh, my God. I can't wait. Imagine the content, Todd, if Kamala Harris is actually running for president.
Man. I do want to just comment on this, too. So, Kim, appreciate you joining the show here and appreciate your comment. Biden needs to go. He is not capable of running our country. Yes and no. Biden needs to go, but he needs to go in November because the only it's not like Democrats finally woke up and realized Joe Biden is not capable of running the country. They knew all along. That's why they picked him in 2019 to be the candidate. He was selected to be president because he's able to be controlled. So I'm not going to offer any sort of benefit of the doubt, like, oh, Democrats didn't know any better. They gave it their best shot. Intentionally chosen in 2019. He's not capable of running our country. And that was the plan all along. But I want him to go against Trump because Trump will beat him. If they slide someone in new, and we got a clip of Vivek coming up later, you got that sweet honeymoon phase. And as Vivek says, maybe we should just play it after this too, Jason. He says it's like you're a captive and whoever your rescuer is, you're going to show gratitude towards them. So he says a lot of Democrats, they're upset that Biden is old. They're upset the media lied to them. So whoever the Democrats bring in to replace them, they're going to say, okay, this is a fresh start. It's a do-over. I like this new Dem nominee because he's not Biden. The media is not going to lie to me about him because apparently people still trust the media. So whoever it is going to get a little bit more leeway from the Democrat voting base or maybe some independents. That's why I don't want Joe Biden to go, because I don't want that honeymoon phase. I don't want voters to think it's going to be any different, because it won't be. Joe Biden is senile. Barack Obama was not senile. They both do the same destruction to the country. So senility is not the issue. And if anyone thinks the president runs the country and not the deep state bureaucrats, all the unelected bureaucrats in the shadows, that's a separate conversation, Jason. That might be a Rumble-only conversation.
Yes, it might be. Yeah, and deep state got body checked by the Supreme Court in the last week too. So that's fascinating. But I got to say, you mentioned the Vivek clip. Should we go to the Vivek clip?
Let's do Vivek here. And he asks a great question at the end of that. That's worth listening to.
This is the beginning of a process, Kayleigh. There is no way Biden's able to go forward. With this type of rift with the main institution that's given him cover, the mainstream media, it is done. It's only a question of when. I think they're not in a rush to do it. The longer it goes between now and late August, the better it is for them, because whoever the new candidate is, they're going to have a honeymoon phase with the public. No doubt about it. It's like the feeling that somebody who's been a tortured prisoner might have with respect to the person who releases them. That's going to be their attitude towards whoever succeeds Joe Biden. They want the election to occur within that honeymoon period. So you're going to see these hoops that they jump through. I think it's going to be a steady decline. But at the end of the day, there's no path forward for Biden. What I want Democrats at home to ask themselves, though, and independents to ask themselves is, how could they possibly have lied for this long? If they lied for this long about Biden's fitness, what else are they also lying to us about now? Who is actually running the government in the United States of America? And the sad truth is, Kayleigh, we lack a good answer to that question. And I think we, the people, deserve honesty in this country. That's not a left-wing or a right-wing point. And I think that's the most important question right now to come out of all of this.
I got to say, Todd, I first saw Vivek early in the primary, and friend of a friend knew him. And hey, here's this dude who's going to try to run for president. I've been a Vivek fan since the beginning, and there are people that are apprehensive of Vivek, completely valid. But I like Vivek. He's a smart guy, and he nailed it. And this has been something. It was funny because Todd and I were talking. We did a show on this a long time ago about how Joe wouldn't be the nominee. And that same, within a week or two, Vivek came out and said, yeah, Joe Biden won't be the nominee. And it's funny because he has tracked consistent with that the whole time. And Todd, do you want to kind of give your breakdown of where Vivek's landing on this?
I mean, he's absolutely correct if you're asking me for my breakdown. And just like we said, slow roll. They're not in a rush immediately, kind of echoing what Joe Scarborough said too. So again, the regime is planting the seed and Vivek is on top of that. He's saying, I know what the game is here. They have until the August convention to actually pick somebody, because at the August convention, you've got end of August, September, October, and that's it. So less than 2.5 months between naming someone and then getting them on the ballot for people to vote for. As he says, that's not a long time to vet someone, to get all the information out there to low IQ voters. They're going to say, oh, it's a new Democrat. This person will run the country differently because somehow a Gavin Newsom or a Hillary or a Kamala, they'll do things differently and better than Joe Biden. And they're missing the big picture that all these Democrats are the same controlled communist puppets. They will all implement the same policies. But as Vivek points out, people won't see it that way. They'll see just a different name as a Democrat and give that person a chance.
And that's where, and we've been cautioning this on our show, and Vivek's talking about it, and some other MAGA folks are. It's easy and fun to attack Joe Biden for being incompetent and slurring words, but we need to make sure that the politicians are campaigning on policies. Trump's agenda, what we're going to do, mass deportations, drill, baby, drill, because what they're going to do is, I think it's going to happen around the convention. So you're looking late August, and then you got the election 60 days later. So they do the, oh, you're right, Joe's can't do it. Joe had a health problem, he had a heart attack, or whatever they come up with. And then you swap in and, hey, here's Michelle Obama, or hey, I mean, Kamala would be great, but anybody else, you switch them in. And then the reason the country is going down the tubes is because of the Democrat policies. But if all we've done is attack Joe Biden's capabilities, that sets up poorly for us electorally.
Yeah, and I'm just some lone voice on the internet. I don't have a lot of pull, but if it were me helping Donald Trump in the debate, it's good to go after Joe Biden. And if they do have another debate, what he really needs to do is attack the Democrat policies as a whole, and then talk about what his agenda is going to be that is an alternative to that. To simply go after Joe Biden kind of plays into their hands and saying Joe Biden is the problem, because that's what Donald Trump was saying the entire time in the debate. Number one, Biden's not running the country. Number two, all Democrats are interchangeable. So it needs to be a broader conversation about this is how Democrats have ruined the country, not just Joe Biden.
Yep. God, this is just
today. Yeah, we have some great comments as well. And I'm just going to pop up William here. Super duper ultra mega deplorable Trumpy patriot here. We're with you, William. Thanks for watching the show.
All right. Where do we go to next, Todd?
All right, folks. Yeah, as promised here, we have a lot of different media coverage since the debate. Why don't we head to, all right, Jason, let's go to Jake Tapper issuing a mea culpa saying he had no idea Joe Biden was this bad and that the media needs to do better. And now, raise your hand if you believe this guy, but let's take a look.
And let's frame it up. Jake Tapper has long been reported as the one guy you can trust in leftist media. He's the most fair. He's got a background. I mean, that's how Jake Tapper's framed. And this is his post-debate reaction.
Discernible pattern of Democratic officials seemingly trying to convince you, the public, to not believe what you saw and what you heard with your eyes and with your ears on Thursday night. Democratic officials have tried to spin this in many ways. They said President Biden just had a cold. They said it was just one off night, akin to when President Obama in 2012 was rusty and seemed a little huffy. But behind the scenes, make no mistake, most Democratic officials witnessed the same shocking spectacle that you did. The difficulty that the presumptive Democratic nominee, the current president of the United States, had just articulating his basic thoughts during the 90 minutes of the debate. With all due respect, it is not honest to say that this is just one night. There have been moments like this that people have seen in front of the cameras and other moments but with cameras not there. Just 2 weeks ago, let me just show this clip. There was another moment like this, not just a senior losing a train of thought, but something else going on. Here he is. It was in an event about immigration. He tries to introduce DHS Secretary Mayorkas, and there's some sort of glitch. I don't know what it is. Let's roll that tape.
Glitch.
Thanks to all the members of Congress and Homeland Security Secretary. I'm not sure I'm going to introduce you all the way. But all kidding aside, Secretary Mayorkas.
This is neither here nor there. I admire Joe Biden's ability to just completely lose it, and then he just like recovers in an instant, like nothing happened. We have some other clips from him speaking on July 4th, and he does the same thing. He just trails off, and he just like wakes back up. He gets rebooted, and then he's like right back to talking. It's kind of hilarious, and hey, it's tragically sad that he's the figurehead of our country. But
I was gonna say we shouldn't be laughing because that's the president of the United States. But at this point, it's we gotta laugh or we gotta cry because Joe Biden, I mean, literally, does he kind of remind you of, I describe it like those old TVs for those of us that are old enough to remember rabbit ears. And all of a sudden, like Channel 9 would come in crystal clear. And then all of a sudden it would fade out. And you go up and you'd move the antennas or put a little aluminum foil on it. And then all of a sudden it'd tune back in and you got a sharp picture. And Joe Biden, he's like, I don't give two craps. Like, he'll poop himself. He'll do whatever. He just keeps going. It's remarkable. But Jake Tapper, Jake, you've known this. You've been a lying bastard for years. Joe Biden wasn't much better than this in the 2020 election. And you got out there and you told everybody he was fine while he's sitting in his basement reading a teleprompter on a Zoom call. I mean, nobody should believe these media clowns.
And that's what's crazy, Jason. They will watch CNN here and say, I think CNN is trying to do better. Maybe I'll start trusting them moving forward. We should go back and find every clip of Tapper promoting the Steele dossier, Russian collusion. He was in front of Charlottesville. I mean, goodness knows what he talked about during the pandemic. All they do is lie to you. And then when they get busted for lying, Jake Tapper's like, we were as shocked as you were during the debate. I can't believe that happened. Like, no, you were not shocked, you lying POS. Like, they knew exactly what they were saying.
And that's what's remarkable, too, is he can say that staring in a camera to hundreds of thousands of people. He makes millions of dollars a year to cover the news. And he comes out and he says, I was shocked. I was really. Are you so stupid as to, I mean, it reminds, Todd, you got young kids. It's like when you walk in and they got chocolate all over their mouth and they're like, I don't know where the Halloween candy went. Like, what happened? It was crazy.
They literally think of their audience as children. That's all. They think you are a stupid child. You're going to just accept whatever they read to you that day. That's the news. That's what CNN said. Yeah, we were shocked. Tapper was totally
God.
shocked.
And let us know in the comments if you talked to any of your Democrat friends after the debate. Because, like, I talked to a couple of mine and I'm like, so what'd you think? And they just had this look of horror on their face. Like, yeah, well, I was never a big Joe Biden fan anyways. I just don't like Trump and I like the Democrat platform and rah. So, yeah.
I will say this, Jay. I don't know about our audience too. A lot of I was golfing on Friday the next day with some buddies. They're pretty apolitical, and that's fine. They work, they have kids. Like, you should be apolitical. We shouldn't be plugged into politics 24/7. And they all said the same thing, independent of one another. Yeah, well, they both lied in the debate. Yeah, Trump's old too. Like, it is amazing to me how people can look at that situation and they just brush it off as both sides bad. And yes, Republicans are as guilty as Democrats when it comes to corrupting our country. But to say there and honestly think that Donald Trump lied as much as Joe Biden, that he is just as old, and why can't we have younger candidates? I can't believe these are the best two people to represent our country. You're a different level of just tuned out, and I dare say stupid if you think that these are interchangeable old people up on stage. When you have Scott Adams says it best on Twitter, Donald Trump speaks in exaggeration and hyperbole. So when he quote lies, what he's doing is it's a salesman pitch. I had no inflation. Okay, he had some inflation, but it was really low. When Joe Biden lies, he's like, you called soldiers suckers and losers for dying in Europe, and you said neo-Nazis are fine people. Like, these lies aren't even on the same planet. Trump is speaking in a mannerism that is accustomed to us by now. It's hyperbole. It's not a straight up lie. Joe Biden is out there just selling falsehoods. So all these people are like, they both lie. Yeah, missing the point entirely.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point too when you talk about lying. Joe Biden says things that are demonstrably false. Like, in the debate, he broke out the Charlottesville hoax. Donald Trump, you called neo-Nazis very fine people. That was debunked 2 weeks before. We covered it on our show by Snopes. A left-wing fact checker came out 7 years after the fact and fact-checked that. And if you listen to the clip, the sentence after it gets clipped off, Donald Trump specifically says,
and I'm not referring to neo-Nazis.
Right. But Jake Tapper and all these talking heads, they take the clip and they move on with it. It's remarkable. So yeah, let us know what your Democrat friend said. And I don't know how even if you hate Trump with a burning, fiery passion, I don't know how you can defend Joe Biden at this point.
And honestly, at this point, you have to ask yourself, why do I hate Trump so much? Could it be that the media and all of the mainstream narratives for years at this point have been telling you to hate him? I mean, honestly, peel back his administration. Fine, you hate Trump. What do you hate about Trump? Oh, he's a womanizer. Okay, well, that's every politician and fool. So that not good enough. He's a liar. Okay, well, every politician's a liar. So not good enough again. Like, what is it you actually don't like about Trump? Right. Eventually, they can't answer you, and they'll just walk away because they get triggered. But hey,
yeah,
where
do we travel to next time?
No. Does it mean I hate him? Absolutely not.
Right.
All right, we got so many clips to get to. Jason.
Oh my God, this is so fun.
Let's go in a different direction here. I promised a July 4th speech here. We know it's bad. It is continuing to be bad. I talked about admiring Joe's ability to just kind of reboot himself. Here's a clip from him speaking yesterday.
I was in that World War I cemetery in France, and the one that one of our colleagues, the former president, didn't want to go and be up there. I probably shouldn't even say it anyway. We got to just remember who the hell we are. We're the United States of America.
I don't know what I'm saying, but we're the United States of America.
Oh my God. People are going to try to say that that's not a man going through a problem. Oh my God.
He wanted to say suckers and losers again, though. He was referencing that as like, I don't know how many times this needs to get debunked. Donald Trump didn't say that. And he certainly didn't say it in the context that Joe Biden is insinuating that he did. But
yeah, and to give you an idea how these hoaxes come alive, there was a general who said who was traveling with President Trump, who Donald Trump fired, that came out and said Donald Trump called the people in the cemetery, those are suckers and losers. 19 other people on the trip have come out on the record saying President Trump never said that. We were there the whole time. This guy's a disgruntled former employee. But everybody repeats the one guy that got fired story over the 19 other witnesses that are there. And Joe Biden gets no pushback on this. He doesn't get called like, if CNN were even being remotely fair, they'd say, well, that story's been a little debunked. There's been different reports, but they act like this is true. And that's what just makes me so mad.
Yeah. And as Murray, I'm going to get the name wrong, so I won't say it here, but you just have to ask yourself, does the motive of the fired general does that give a little space for him to make something up about Trump because he wants to get back at him a little bit? So that's part one. Part two, Donald Trump is the most pro-peace, pro-military president of my lifetime. No new large foreign wars. So if he doesn't like soldiers, he's going to ship them off to battle as just pawns for the regime. He's the only one not to do that. I got to say, Donald Trump's got to be the one that loves the military more than anybody, because he's not sending our boys and girls over there to die in some godforsaken desert. He doesn't want them killed needlessly. So it doesn't even make sense if you peel back the layers again, but that's asking too much for low information voters, I think.
Right. And, shout out to him. We're talking veterans. Hey, one of the big fans of the show, one of the sponsors of the show from Split Rock Coffee, Paul Reese, he's over on the Rumble chat. And I got to say, folks, it's nice to see on the live broadcast, we keep getting more and more people over there. The Facebook's great for the chats, for the comments, but Facebook suppresses things we say. They make it hard to do business. That's why we encourage everybody to download the Rumble app, go to Rumble, get used to using Rumble, because it's only going to get worse before the election. And maybe that'll be the next story we cover, Todd, what's happened to us personally from a business perspective with the media covering up. But hey, Todd, if somebody wants to try Paul's Split Rock Coffee, where can they go? What can they do?
Well, folks, just like I do, just like Jason does, go to splitrockcoffee.com. And if you use promo code TODD10, instant savings on your next order. And go ahead and subscribe today and get all that delicious Split Rock coffee. I go with the breakfast blend. If I remember correctly, Jason, are you a breakfast?
I'm a dark roast.
Dark roast guy. They've got tons of different varieties. So if you like the light roast, the dark roast, they got a couple blends in there. Subscribe today, get it shipped to your door every month, and use promo code TODD10, like I said, to get some savings instantly. But delicious coffee. I'm never going back to anything else.
Yeah. So if you got that screen grab too from Facebook, so we just want to explain how this works, how this affects content creators, and what the media was doing. So if you look, we did a post June 10th, 2024. That was the post of Joe Biden, just an unedited video clip from C-SPAN, just with some of Todd's commentary on it, like, oh my God, Joe Biden looks confused, rah, rah, rah. We posted that on a 1 million follower Facebook page. And on that page, we get it demonetized. It got moved lower in our feed, and it got fact checked. Polls falsely claim he left E-Day early, ignored veterans, that sort of thing. So understand what big tech's doing. So us as content creators, like, we make our living using social media pages, sharing content, getting people to watch it and engage with it. And Facebook is going to demonetize, added a strike to our channel because we dared to say Joe Biden was confused or didn't stay for the whole program, that kind of thing. That's the level of suppression that we see now, and we're going to continue seeing between now and the election, and it's only going to get worse. And that's part of what makes this U-turn with some of the media, where they're like, oh, Joe's got to go. So shocking is that's how bad the debate was. Everybody was lined up. We're going to weekend at Bernie's it. We're going to drag the corpse across the finish line. And like I say, we experience this firsthand as content creators, where they're going to ding us. They're going to try to negatively impact our business because we accurately report on Joe Biden's mental condition. Meanwhile, Joe Scarborough or Jake Tapper can say whatever garbage they want, and there is nary a fact check. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that reminds me of your Occupy Democrats. We did that on the podcast a couple months ago now, I think. But if you are on the left, you can say anything you want on these platforms. No fact check, nothing on there. Promote that all to your audience. If we try to present a public access video, it's in the public domain, it's from C-SPAN, and all it is, not even opinions, just Joe Biden wanders off, which he clearly does in the video. Boom, fact check because you're a conservative news outlet. And I know we have a smart audience, Jason. I don't think this is folks here, but anyone that thinks they're getting the truth from the media, you have to remember it is in a filter. What we showed with that Joe Biden video just gets left out of the conversation entirely, so they control the entire window of conversation about what is news and what is not news. So maybe people never saw the video of Joe Biden wandering off because that was outside of the scope of what the media and big tech wanted you to see and discuss. And and all the rest of it. So when you don't see the video, when you think, oh, Joe Biden was fine, it's because of stuff like this. You weren't allowed to know that it was real before last Thursday.
Right. And that's why your Democrat friends, we talk a lot about our Democrat friends because they are victims of a brainwashing campaign. They think Donald Trump is a next Hitler. He's going to destroy the country. Joe Biden's great. He's the greatest president since Harry Truman or FDR. And he's completely there. Why are they mean to Joe? He's got a stutter. But this stuff that Facebook does and social media platforms do, this is why that works, because they control the flow of information to other people. And so, guys, I use my dad as an example. He watches CNN and MSNBC. My dad never knew Joe Biden was as bad as he was till he saw him on that debate stage.
Yeah. None of them did.
Huh?
None of them did. Remember, Jake Tapper was just as shocked as your dad was.
Oh, my God. And can you imagine Jake Tapper saying that with a straight face?
Yeah, there's language we can't use on Facebook. But if you go to our Rumble channel, I do some breakdowns of the Tapper video, and there it gets a little more unfiltered.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Todd used an F word in that one.
Yeah.
He was so mad.
I don't know if this is a real name. Thank you for watching, Vigdis. I think that's how you pronounce it. What Democrats accuse Trump of is what Democrats are already doing. Jason, I don't know how this could be more obvious. You've got Joe Biden and Democrats out there. This is my favorite example. It's the most obvious example. He's going to go after his political opponents. You say that with a straight face. Meanwhile, Joe Biden has weaponized the Department of Justice and the entire regime against Donald Trump and his supporters. There are still people locked up in prison because of events early in January 2021 that even though the Supreme Court just struck down Section 1512, Merrick Garland's out there saying we are going to push forward all of these indictments against Trump supporters. Oh, and by the way, Trump's had all of these felony charges levied against him, but it's Donald Trump that's going to be the one that weaponizes the system against opponents. Who believes this?
Those are my favorite tweets where it's like, convicted felon Donald Trump is going to weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. And then you're like, well, what's he convicted of a felony for? The Stormy Daniels hush money. Well, that's not even illegal. Like, well, no, it was, I don't know what felony he convicted, but he's bad. And yeah, it's insane. And this weaponization of government, I got to say, ended up working out great for Trump because it proves his point, proves we live in a two-tiered system of justice. The machine, which is the government, they will go after any outsider that's trying to. And why are they doing that? Donald Trump wants to shrink all of the federal government. And, people have asked me, how much can you shrink it by? I would say 70% is a good starting point. Just 7 out of 10 government agencies, government employees, shut it down. Like, it's a drain. We can't afford it anyways. They aren't doing anything to make life better for Americans. But that bureaucracy is going to fight back against people like Trump that want to reduce the democracy. Absolutely. Because it's their job on the line.
100%, Jason. Yeah, IRS, goodbye. Income tax, goodbye. Department of Education. Why does a state have a Department of Education and the federal government? So that could easily be shut down and let the states decide for themselves. But all these departments, anyway, this is probably a separate podcast episode. They're all corrupt anyways. They've been captured by the industries they're supposed to regulate. So if you're asking me what good do, they don't do any good. Get rid of them. Get rid of the industries that are paying their salaries and then provide them favorable decisions. So the Chevron case is a good step in the right direction, but the next step is just gut them. Just get rid of them.
Do you want to talk about Chevron? Because that was a huge deal, Todd.
I don't think enough people appreciate how big Chevron was. So we go back a couple decades ago, and the Chevron ruling said that the government agencies basically get to create their own laws around their industry because they're, quote, this is when we fell in love with science and experts. What does a judge know about regulating the environment? So we're going to defer to the EPA. And I think it was the EPA case that actually got brought to the Supreme Court. So the EPA's bureaucrats will craft legislation illegally because the Constitution doesn't say anything about government agencies creating laws. That belongs to Congress. But they eventually created laws. The Supreme Court back when a couple decades ago said, yep, that is okay because I'm just a judge. I don't know science. I'm not an expert in your field. So you make laws that make sense for you. And of course, you end up with multiple agencies competing over control, power. laws could contradict one another. And now you've got, I think the best example is OSHA. It wasn't Joe Biden that technically mandated the vaccine, or it was OSHA through a Chevron decision that said workplaces, as a workplace safety organization, workplaces can mandate the jab. So that would not fly anymore now that Chevron got tossed out. But it takes away power from the unelected deep state. And if you want a law, you got to go through Congress.
Yeah, and I mean, to put it in perspective, so like we'll talk about Split Rock Coffee again. Paul is going to build a big coffee roasting facility. He's got to go through like 6 or 7 different state, local, federal agencies for everything from drainage to electricity to all these things. They set rules for how he can build his coffee roastery. And that rule essentially is like passing a law. And there's no check or balance. And the Chevron decision was even worse because citizens couldn't just sue the federal regulatory agency and say this is being inappropriate, this shouldn't be this way, that sort of thing, where you can sue the federal government, but you couldn't sue them because of the Chevron decision. And you would even run into situations where you'd have 2 different federal agencies or 3 different federal agencies all having conflicting guidance because they're all making up their own rules. And like, one will say, yeah, this will work. One will say that'll work. One will say the other thing will work. And you as a citizen had no regress. And these people working in these agencies, if you know anybody that works for the federal bureaucracy, it's impossible to get fired practically. You have pensions, your benefits, like work performance guidelines are just guidelines. They give you feedback. You get your raises based on, public budgeting, not your job performance. I mean, government employees, God love people that are actually serving and trying to help American citizens. But generally speaking, it is just a big waste of money.
Yeah, they love their public sector unions. Nothing like fighting for more tax dollars despite poor job performance.
Right. Oh, yeah. Then Paul in, and this is my favorite part. Property taxes are $15,000 a year on vacant land. He owns this big chunk of property, and he writes a check for $15,000 a year.
Unbelievable. Yeah, but just going back to the people that work in government, maybe they work for the EPA. Do you think that person is really intelligent and an expert, or are they just motivated by their own agency's whims to go out and create laws that benefit them? So whenever you defer to these experts, remember, these are not real experts. These are just regular people that have a government job, that have a motivation to get as much power for their agency as they can. And Chevron's good because, yeah, a judge might not be an expert on every field, but they're an expert when it comes to law and the Constitution. And if Chevron is unconstitutional, or an agency's directive is unconstitutional because it bypasses Congress, that's what their job is. And that's why it's such a great ruling here. Jason, we got this comment here. I think this is the 3rd week. So you had your conversations. I had my conversations.
Oh, my God.
Both people are bad. Kathy writes, I have a couple of Democrat friends who actually said right after the debate they thought Biden did a great job. I haven't heard a peep from them since. Yeah, we showed the poll. 33% of people thought Biden won the debate.
Kathy, send prayers to those friends of yours. And I gotta say, it's funny every time I see these polls, and it's oh, hey, this is, whatever the scenario is, 30% think Joe Biden's doing a great job. I'm like, how do those people get up, pay their bills, go to work? I'm walking around the grocery store. Are one of them here? Like, because they are the reason you have warning labels on like Tide Pods that say don't eat the Tide Pods. Or, I mean, I don't know how brain dead you need to be to believe some of that stuff.
Yeah, it's what makes me dislike democracy sometimes, Jason, because their vote counts just as much as yours.
Oh, it's scary. It's scary.
All right.
Where do we travel to next, Todd? God,
we've talked about Biden. We've talked about the Supreme Court. If you just want to talk about inconsistency from the left and different messages based on how they feel, and if this doesn't prove to you that they are simply out there for power, they do not have any principles to stand on, we've got a clip of Joe Biden talking about how, in one instance, we need to respect the court's ruling. We need to let the system of justice play out. And then we can watch him get really mad when he doesn't get his way, when the Supreme Court goes a different direction. Let's take a look at that one.
That's how the American system of justice works. And it's reckless. It's dangerous. It's irresponsible for anyone to say this was rigged just because they don't like the verdict. Our justice system has endured for nearly 250 years, and it literally is the cornerstone of America, our justice system. The justice system should be respected, and we should never allow anyone to tear it down. This decision today has continued the court's attack in recent years on a wide range of long-established legal principles in our nation, from gutting voting rights and civil rights, to taking away a woman's right to choose, to today's decision that undermines the rule of law of this nation.
I'm just going to, if you're watching the video feed, I'm just going to present Michael's comment. Thank you, Michael, for your comment there. Like, get out of here with that.
Right. And it's remarkable because you engage. So Todd and I think the government's corrupt. We think it's corrupt. We are consistent in our beliefs. When the government does something, it's to benefit the government, not the American citizens. And when a court case is corrupt, we call it out as corrupt. And when they get it right, we understand too that it can be like they can make the right decision. But Joe Biden talks about it's an assault on democracy to question court cases, decisions, that sort of thing. And then he doesn't get his way and he goes, oh, see, they're a threat to democracy the other way because they ruled against me. I don't even know.
Yeah, great reminder. I'm glad you made that comment about government not working for us. Everyone thinks we've been brainwashed since we were kids. If you're a product of the public school education, we the people, the government represents us. You've got to drop that notion right away. The government is its own living entity. It has zero interest in promoting or serving your benefit. The government does things to benefit the government. It does not do things for you, the people. And I was reading Murray Rothbard. He's a libertarian thinker, Jason. I was reading his short Anatomy of the State last night. And one thing that stood out to me, just to prove the point of how much you should hate our government, even in its best days, you should absolutely despise the government. You think about private crime. If you murder someone, off to the slammer for you. Our government can murder millions of people around the world. No one is held accountable. You talk about property crime. If I go out and steal something that belongs to you, Jason, off to prison for me. Our government can just come in and demand that you give 30% of your paycheck. And if you don't, armed robbery occurs and you're off to jail. The government can do whatever it wants with impunity. There is no punishment. You and I as individuals, though, we have to play by a certain set of rules. Everything the government does is corrupt. You should hate it, and you don't hate it enough.
Yeah. Well, and I got to hop in, and I think he's a Trump supporter, but Mike Palmieri Sr., Trump will be our king. I want to talk about that threat to democracy, our king, that sort of thing, because this is getting a lot of hype. So in the past 5,000 years of documented history, all across the globe, there have been millions of people, and they've used millions of different ways to select the ruling class, whether it's hereditary through monarchies, whether it's democracy, whether it's a constitutional republic like we've done. Even in Europe, they take some of those concepts and blend them together. The end result of however you select your leaders is you get smart people who have the citizens' best outcomes in mind. And if you had, there were a lot of great kings in history who wanted life and their subjects to prosper, and they made decisions that were prosperous for the populace. We've had presidents of the United States that have had their heart in the right place and made decisions to help American people. We've not had that for a lifetime. We are living in a pseudo monarchy. If you look at my lifetime, after Ronald Reagan, we had Bush, who's just right from the intelligence community. We had Clinton, who was owned by the intelligence community because he was banging all these people and they had all the records on him. Then you go back to a different Bush, so it's still, how is that not a monarchy? And then you go into Obama when he comes on, and you look at Obama's opponents, John McCain, the military industrial complex, Mitt Romney, who's owned by corporate businesses. that ruling class, you are selected to participate in that ruling class, and you are allowed. And it's no different than a king picking his nephew or cousin or some vassal to be a governor of something. These people are all selected by rich and powerful people. You saw it in the primaries. We had Mayor Trent Staggs on our podcast. He was running for Senate, and they dumped $10 million in a primary against him, the Republican establishment. That's how much they didn't want a nice, normal guy that they didn't own in the Senate. And it something when people say like, oh, Trump's going to be king, as far as I'm concerned, don't care. Like, he can be a king. We can call it whatever we want. We do not. If you really look at Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and I'll even say on the other side, Mitch McConnell and Speaker Mike Johnson, if you look at those people and say they are making decisions for America, you're an idiot. Those people are making decisions to benefit themselves, their families, the government, not looking out for us. And that's why the system violently rejects President Trump, because he's not going to be able to fix everything, but he's going to at least go in there and try to make life better for Americans. I firmly believe that. But all this, it's funny because when I hear people say like, oh, he's going to be a dictator, he won't leave office, part of me is like, well, it's going to take him more than 4 years. What if he hangs out for a few minutes?
Give him a few more years. Yeah, we use all these cushy little euphemisms to describe our democracy and representatives. It substitute the words for nobility, ruling class. Our system on paper sounds great. In practice, that's not where we are anymore. Yeah, it is no different at this point. We have a ruling class that subjugates us. And you want to talk about, we have wonderful freedoms. We live in a great country. It's hard to complain, Jason, when you and I scream into the computer for an hour and make a comfortable living doing that. But make no mistake, the government does not work for us, and the government does not operate as you are led to believe it does, as written in the Constitution. You've got your small, select group of people that make decisions, irregardless of how it impacts you, and often to your own detriment.
Right. Yeah, and people have conflated democracy with like good people running the country. And the fact is, big money controls government, controls elections. Big money, they're making decisions to benefit big money. And it was interesting to give a shout out. Will Tanner, one of our partners on the American Tribune, if you go to www.theamericantribune.news, he did a breakdown of the Declaration of Independence for the 4th of July. And he went through, most people don't know, in the Declaration of Independence, they gave a list of grievances to the king. And they said, you're not doing this, you're not doing this, you're not doing this. And Will actually compared those grievances that created us to declare independence from England to today's day and age. And it's like, your taxes are too high. Okay, check. You're not representing the will of the people. Check. Your regulations make it burdensome for us to grow and prosper. Check. It was just a checklist of all the things. I mean, if our government now is doing what England did to us 200 and some years ago, and that was why we kicked them off. It's insane.
Yeah, I have not fact checked this, Jason. So this is all just me reporting what I've seen. I don't know if it's true or not. So there's the caveat. But there's side by sides of like in Egypt under the Pharaoh, the slaves, offered 20% of their crops to the king and they got to keep the rest. Here we are paying, if you're in California, you probably pay 50% of income tax between federal and state. And you talked about back then, I think they revolted over like a 2% T tax or something like that. But here we are just humming along like, yeah, that's fine, government. You can, stratify this income tax at the federal level. States, depending on what state you live in. Minnesota, I think we pay like 9 or 10% income tax. Property tax, sales tax. We get taxed every direction. And people are like, yeah, it's fine. That's the system, how it's supposed to work.
Yeah, it's funny. I just kind of roughed out the numbers when I do taxes for my buddies. And I roughed out the numbers. And pretty much everybody across the board, half their income at least got tied up in some form of tax. And and I mean, Paul earlier mentioned his property. I mean, in Minnesota, my property taxes are about $4,000 a month, and my house ain't that fancy. It's a house built in the 80s. It's, a decent enough place. So,
well, Jason, speaking of taxes and losing your money, there are ways to protect the money that you have worked hard for. And I want to talk about our sponsors over at Goldco. And folks, if you've been watching for a while, I got some real silver in my hands finally. But I'd love to read this to you. This is a great way to protect your savings. Don't let it get devalued here. So, folks, Babel is falling. If you've turned on the TV or watched anything on the news online, our country is down and out. Tower of Babel is falling. And now's the time to protect yourself and your temple from destruction. And to do that, that means protecting your resources, including your savings, so you can protect and defend your legacy and your posterity from destruction. That's why thousands of good Americans like Jason and I are arming ourselves with physical gold and silver from Goldco. Go to handsoffmywealth.com or click on the link in the video description. But also, if you visit my partners at Goldco today, tell them you heard this on my podcast, Freedom from the Press, and you can get up to $10,000 in bonus silver from Goldco for qualified accounts. So protect your legacy and your posterity while you still can. Go to handsoffmywealth.com.
You know, and speaking of precious metals, so we don't give financial advice. I will share my own personal experience, what I do. I think you invest in a lot of different stuff. I have some precious metals, I have some crypto, that kind of thing. If you don't know what you're doing, getting into precious metals with a company like Goldco is great. Go to handsoffmywealth.com, fill out your little form. But so story with my wife. So Jen and I got married 5 years ago, and she got her engagement ring, right? And then you put those bands on the side of it. And then for our 5th year anniversary, she wanted 2 more bands that we're going to put on the outside of it, so that you end up with kind of a thicker ring. And we went into the jewelry store, and everybody talks about prices going up. So the exact same product 5 years later had nearly doubled in cost for a band. And you talk to the guys, they're like, yeah, gold. And you look at gold prices over the past 5 years, it's crazy how much the prices have gone up. And that's because the value of the dollar's gone down. So your dollar right now, and I've seen these trends on people are sharing them on like Snapchat or Twitter, that kind of thing, where they're going into their Walmart app and they're looking at their order from 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and they just hit repeat that order, and the price has gone from like $130 to like $400. It's crazy. And like I say, if you've bought groceries, you know how much more expensive things are. So
but inflation's a good thing. I've heard that from KJP. So
I thought it was transitory.
It was transitory. Then first it wasn't happening. Then it was transitory. Then it's a good thing.
Right. Yeah, we can't keep up.
Can't keep up with the narratives. Jim, thank you for commenting and watching today. My apologies for earlier making some assumptions here. A great question, because it's not just this, but I wonder how many Democrats know it was Joe Biden who presented the bill to tax Social Security. Yeah, I wonder how many Black Americans realize it was Joe Biden that promoted the 1994 crime bill that would send every Black person that committed a crime to prison for a long time. How many things has Joe Biden done to ruin this country? And Jim, to answer your question, not a lot of people are aware of one thing that Biden's done, let alone countless things that Joe Biden has done.
Well, and the Social Security one's funny because you're going to see that ramp up between now and election. And Todd and I have actually done 2 different full hour-long episodes breaking down the history of Social Security, how awful it is. The fact of the matter is Social Security is going bankrupt. The only answer Democrats have is raise taxes. And even if you raise the taxes, even by their math, you just buy yourself a couple more years. And, I put a tweet out about this last week. If you collected all of the just assets for the billionaires in America, all their assets, took it all from them and gave it to the government, it wouldn't even pay for a year's worth of the government's budget. I mean, so anybody that says, oh, you just got to raise taxes and it would be fine. And think of how amoral that is too. The fact that you're more successful does not mean you should pay more taxes. You know what? I hope somebody that makes 10 times what I do pays the same rate of taxes as I do, because I don't think they should be penalized for their success. Just like somebody that makes less than me should pay the same rate as me. That's just my opinion.
I'm going to butcher this Thomas Sowell quote, but he says it is astounding that it is greedy to want to keep your own money, but it's not greedy to want to steal somebody else's. It is so upside down. I am not owed anything from anybody else. I don't need the government to confiscate anyone else's property. I certainly don't want them confiscating my property at gunpoint simply to turn around and give it to somebody else. That's not how this works. You can lean on family, church, community if you're down and out. And we've all been there. We all know people that have been there, and we have helped out at the individual level. But it is so immoral to promote big government just stealing from you with threat of prison. if you don't hand over your hard-earned property and give it to somebody else.
It's
Get me
infuriating.
fired up, Jason.
Yeah. Well, and actually, folks, we got one more story we got to go through. But unfortunately, this one we can't show on YouTube or Facebook. So we're going to have to cut those screams down. This is an Ilhan Omar story. This woman should not only be removed from Congress, she should be removed from this country. We're going to show you shocking video from a campaign rally event in the past week. But like I say, we can't show this on some of the platforms. So this is your chance. Go to rumble.com. Our channel is the American Tribune. Easy to find. You got to get the Rumble player anyways. But we're going to do our exit here to close out. We got to close out Facebook, YouTube. And then we'll see those of you sticking around over on Rumble. But when you see this video, Todd, did it make your blood boil?
It does, and it makes my blood boil even more knowing that people are out there supporting this woman. I don't know what it'll take to wake up Joe Biden voters. I know Ilhan Omar is not president, so she has a little less power, but when you look at someone like her in a position of power in Congress, in some ways it's much more frightening because of what she represents for our future if we allow this to continue. So blood boiling all over the place, but to our Facebook audience, thanks for joining us today if this is where we part ways. And I hope everyone had a great 4th, but we'll see you back in a minute on Rumble at the American Tribune.